Good morning, YouTube. Let me just start by saying I never really prepare for these videos. I just kind of jump in and do them. I did have a friend of mine yesterday morning that I would like to do the same flight that we did with the G530 RNAV landing in the San Diego airport. That I wanted to do the same flight with the G1000 this morning just to demonstrate how much easier it is to do with the G1000 over the G130. Right off the bat, you might be able to notice that I don't have a heading indicator that I need to worry about matching with magnetic north. So I won't even have to really look at that compass this morning other than what I just did there. But I'd like to go ahead and program the G1000 right now and get that ready to go for this flight. And then I have a little surprise this morning that I'd like to go ahead and show y'all and see what you think. Well, let's get started by programming the G1000. And it might have my flight plan from the G530, so I don't know for certain. But we'll go ahead and program the approach, assuming it's going to be 27, and then I'll also check ATIS. And then this one I can do the barrels for, the minimum, so I'm going to go ahead and look that up for the San Diego airport. I've already got SkyVector pulled up, so all I'm looking at, well here, I'll just drag it over and let you see. So yesterday I had pulled up San Diego International Airport just so I could get ATIS, which is 134.8. And having that site open already, we don't need arrival, we need approaches, and I'm looking for runway 27, and I'm using Y. Why? I don't know, because that's what I chose. So again, the ATIS information is listed there. My approach angle for Viota, it just kind of gives me some of the waypoints that I'll be approaching in at, but 4,000 to start at, 2,000 by the time I hit Rebo. Excuse me. And then we need to look at our minimums. So I'll be doing an LNAV, or actually, I'm just going to set it to 680 or 700. But that's our minimums. The MDA means minimum decision altitude. So LNAV, I think, is something that airliners use. LP is probably what we're using, so I was thinking 680, 700. But essentially 760 means just at a slightly higher altitude you need to disengage the autopilot and do the landing. 680 is just slightly lower. So we'll do Barrow. Oops, wrong knob. And we don't have to do this. We could leave it off and then just kind of turn the autopilot on or off when we want to. That's kind of what we do with the G530, isn't it? Now this time, I'm going to go ahead and, well, I can just load it like we did yesterday, but typically I just go ahead and activate it. But in this instance, I'm going to do exactly like I did with the G530, and just load it, and that way when we get in the air, that's what we'll choose, that's what we'll do. So there it is there, I have it ready. I'll get my cursor back on it, and I can just activate it whenever I'm ready. I'll need to click the proc button and then activate approach. I do not need to set my heading indicator with magnetic north, as I've already mentioned. Looks like I have my altitude set for 3,800 feet. We only need 2,800 to get over that mountain for our initial airfix, which is Lindy. So 2,800 is set good. Okay, now that we have this programmed, let's go ahead and turn the avionics, turn it all off for here for a minute, and have a look outside. Alright. It looks like the ailerons, rudder, and yaw are all working properly. Now I'd like to show you something interesting. Well, it might not be all that interesting, but let's see. Customize. Let me just click the subscribe button here. Might take a second for the changes to take effect. Alright, now we're ready to fly. And, oh, interesting. Yeah, I was trying to go for subtle, reminders for anybody who might be watching these videos to maybe like, subscribe, thumbs up, things like that. So, but then as I got to doing it, I may have gone a little overboard with it. I'm not entirely certain on that, but this is supposed to say subscribe, but there's it apparently with the seatbelt it just overlaps, so there's not much I can do with that. And some of these, when you put them on, it just duplicates. Like there's only one seat in the file, so it duplicates over here, and in so doing, it does it backwards. So that's kind of a little bit of a drawback in some instances. And then again, if I do the front seat, the rear seats are duplicated the same way. I didn't do anything on the back of this, but I thought about it. But it's primarily because I knew it was going to be backwards on one side if I did. So, but after doing this, I started doing something else, and I'm getting better at it. And eventually, I'll have a pretty decent livery. But right now, it might be a little. Alright, so that one, let me do this side here. Yeah. So I kind of like these splats, and I used it 4 times, and I might have used it on the inside as well. But as you see, we got just well, I did put one black, well, one there too. So again, it duplicates. So you see, the play button might be the right direction on one side, but if you go on the other side, it's in the wrong direction. So there are some advantages to doing this and some disadvantages. Yeah, I had a little fun with it for a little while. And I don't think I did a splat on this one, but I did a splat on the Cessna 172 with the G530 up here. I think I had the splat. Alright, so enough of that. Let's get in the air. And yeah, since I made it, I'm going to fly it. I don't anticipate that I'm ever going to fly it more than just once. So this is a see it and it's gone. Now the reason I started messing with the library and adjusting the ACF files was because I was downloading these libraries and there were certain aspects to them that I liked, but many times I found something that I was not happy about or didn't like, and which set me on this path of going and searching for yet another livery that maybe had something a little bit better and that I liked. And there's all these liveries out there, but there's pretty much something I don't like about all of them. So I figured it would be better for me if I just enabled myself to be able to adjust the livery as I wanted and get the aircraft how I like it. And one of the things I don't like about the default aircraft is the gray dashboard or backboard in the Cessnas. And when you're flying in the dark, they light up and all you see is this gray. Well, I don't need to see all that. All I need to see is my instrument. So I really kind of want to have a dark backboard for my instruments. Now, the Snack Air livery does that, but they put carbon fiber on everything. And I mean, carbon fiber is cool, whatever. I have motorcycles, and I know guys that like to put carbon fiber on their motorcycles and stuff, but carbon fiber's not really, that important to me. Now, the outside of the aircraft, the Snack Air livery, they've got carbon fiber green paint. That I really do like. But the struts on the aircraft, the wing struts, are a black carbon fiber, and I think that aircraft would have been better served with green carbon fiber. So if I could change that and make it green, I would like the struts better on the Snack Air livery. And then also if I can just adjust some of the carbon fiber in the cockpit, I would like it a little bit more too. Either that, or I'm going to adjust the default Cessna cockpit and just make it a little darker. And with that, I'm going to do away with the beige and make it a little more gray. That's the other thing I like about the Snack Air livery, is their cockpit is gray, not beige, and then they have the green trim, and I do like that. But their gray is a little too dark, so I would like it a lighter gray, and still with the green trim perhaps, but just certain things that I would like to see changed, just for my own personal preference. Everybody else might think it's perfect and want to, but then again, if I'm in the air, I think it would make me feel better if I'm flying my own livery as opposed to flying someone else's. So that's my intention, is to go that route, create my own livery and fly it. And then if there's anyone out there that's wanting to share it, I'll be willing to share it as well. I'm not making it just for me, but making it for me, but I'll still be willing to share it. All right, I'm testing the brakes here, giving it some power, and I'm ready to take off. I'm going to extend some flaps. All right, and just as we did yesterday morning, I'm lifting off without barely having to rotate. In fact, I didn't rotate. It just lifted off. And I'm more or less nosing down to keep it from not, stalling, from nosing up too much, stalling. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and initiate the autopilot at this point. And then I'll do a vertical speed. 1,000 feet sounds good. We'll get up to, well, no, that's a little bit much. Let me do 700. We'll get up to 2,800. I'll go ahead and initiate the procedure or activate the approach. And now we're flying directly to land. Well, as soon as I hit nav. I'm going to also hit approach right now, because I want my GPS to fly the approach. And that's it. I'm done. I'm going to fly to Lindy, turn around, come back, intercept the approach, and that's it. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to check magnetic north. I don't have to look at my heading bug. My heading bug is actually set north. Also, let's look at the multifunction display here. Oh wow, that's pretty big. Let me make that smaller. If I can grab it in the right spot, I might be able to make it smaller. There we are. Okay, what I was going to do is just zoom out some so we can see more of our flight, but we're flying out to Lindy. Gonna make a circle by that mountain, over those mountains, and then come back and go here. Now, one thing we can do with the G1000 too is we can do terrain. So we know what, like at this point, I'm gonna run right into those red dots. I'm gonna hit them, but by the time we get there, they should be clear, and we can watch that. And if that's not enough, we can do the same thing on the map, the inset map over here. So that is one of the advantages of the G1000. Now, if you remember the G1000 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, when I was flying through the canyon and I was bragging about what I could see the ground below me in my glass display. I can't in X-plane. I can only see the sky and the ground, you know, and where I am in position to the horizon. So there is an advantage to the G1000 over X-plane 11 in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in that you can actually see what's below you, and that comes in handy. It really did in the canyons and descending into them. Now, once I was in the canyon near the bottom, I didn't even look at that display. I was looking at what was in front of me, but you know, descending into it, knowing what I needed to avoid on my way down, that was necessary. So, looks like our mountains are yellow now, so we're not going to hit them. I know I'm at a high enough altitude. We're at 2,500 feet, which is pretty much what we flew at yesterday to get around them. I just decided I'd go ahead and, well, yeah, fly to 2,800. So, the disadvantage of the G1000 is that it makes you lazy. And anybody who has to, and there might be fewer people that are like that. Like if you were to actually have a Cessna in real life, like how many instances of your own Cessna are you going to be bouncing back and forth between the G1000 and the older instruments? But my point is that the G1000 would make you lazy because it's easier just to do overall. I had to do very little, and I don't have to second guess or check myself. I already know that I'm going to fly back and intercept the glide path, and this plane is going to do everything that I want it to, and I don't even have to, you know, think really that I'm going to make a mistake. Now, when I'm trying to do these videos and I'm flying with the G530, I am guessing and second guessing, triple guessing, and I'm looking at my stuff, and sometimes I'm still not able to do the RNAV landing, and it's something as simple as the heading bug. But if you're not having to adjust the heading bug when you're using the G1000 or the GTN 750, what's going to make you think that it's the heading bug that's the problem when you're flying with the older instruments in the G530? The only thing that can help you out there is experience and your memory. How much experience and practice you've had doing RNAV landings with the G530, and yeah, your experience with that and what you remember, you know, after having flown the other G1000 and the GTN 750. It can get you lazy. So if I were to just fly this G1000 all the time, and then a year later come back and try to do an RNAV landing with the G530, I'm probably going to have to relearn a couple of things before I do a successful run. So I hit the approach button already, right? And that's why this is here, because I hit the approach. If I hit approach again, that goes away, but I'll hit it back. I do have an altitude button, but I never hit it. You know, I just did my vertical speed button, and I told it 2,800 feet initially when we were on the ground, and that's what it did. It flew to 2,800 feet, so I didn't have to ever hit the altitude hold button here. Never touched it. And now I can use that, like if I was at 2,500 feet and I hit altitude hold, then it would hold at whatever altitude I was at. But if you have an altitude set here and you do your vertical speed, or you do a flight level change and then adjust your throttle, it's going to fly you to that altitude, and then it's going to hold there. With the older instruments in the G530, I have to watch the altimeter, excuse me, not the altimeter, the altitude indicator. I have to watch it, and then, you know, if I'm looking out the window or something like that and I'm not paying attention to my instruments and what the aircraft is doing, I might fly right by 2,800 feet and go to 3,000, and then, you know, or 2,900, and I meant to do 2,800. Then I gotta either descend down or, you know, make adjustments accordingly because of my lack of attention span there. But with the G1000, you can rely on your settings and your equipment and expect it to do what you want. So it certainly takes out some human error. The other thing I like about the G1000 is the fact that you can get your wind direction here. So I know that it's coming in at 5 knots, and I know which direction it's coming in at, which means I'm flying at an angle towards the wind. Because of, you know, well, 5 miles an hour isn't that strong, but 5 miles an hour is 5 miles an hour. So I'm having to fly a little bit of an angle. The other thing is you can come over here to your, you know, just click on the PFD for your primary function display, and you can turn your winds off there, or you can change how it looks. You know, you have option 1. I particularly like option 2, and then there's option 3. Or you can turn it off. But you can also do your DME. So now this is DME for nav 1. If you hit that button again, it goes away. But why is it not doing well? Because I'm trying to show you apps. That's what I want, I think, is the see, we're heading to the DIA, or the VYDDA, 2.5 miles. It displays that information there. And that's what I was wanting to bring up. I was thinking distance measuring equipment, but that pulls that up, and that's only for nav 1. But that's good information to have too if you're doing VOR or waypoints with the G1000, which is something I'd like to do sometime. I did it with the G530 from the Grand Canyon to KSAN over the weekend, but I'd also like to go ahead and fly some waypoints with the G1000. So once I get to probably O'Kane, we're going to get established on the localizer, and this is going to switch to GP, a green GP indicating we're on the glide path. So the only thing I want to do right now is just watch my speed. Yeah, it's pretty ugly with all those buttons on there. But I was really just messing around and trying to gain experience. Right now I'm changing the rug color in the default Cessna ACF file, the default cockpit file, from beige to gray. Yeah, I put subscribe on the strut, the wing strut. But of course over here it's backwards. And that's only because you have one strut, so it duplicates. And on one it will be correct, and then on the other it's incorrect. But it was nice to learn how to do the pinstripes around the seats, you know. I would even like to change these colors. So like if I do green here, I want there to be some green in here, in the threads. So I'm going to do that. Probably. Allegedly. Alright. Pull this up and move this down. Maybe we have to be at RWY before it intercepts the glide path. Oh wait, no, we're descending. Excuse me. We're descending at, we descended from 28 to 25. I wasn't paying attention. So let me slow the aircraft down and do some flaps. Well, we descended, but we have not intercepted the glide path yet. And I know that because this is not switched to just GP yet. But yeah, it will go from white to green and GP. So 0.8 miles, we can be looking for that. Alright, I'm seeing the glide path indicator. It just showed up. This whole bar here wasn't even here a moment ago, and it just showed up, which means once this gets closer to that center line right there, right at the horizon, once it's close enough, or somewhere in between that dot and there, it's going to intercept and we'll start to descend. There we go. Thank you for not making me a liar. Alright, I'm going to extend some more flaps. I've done a lot more landings with the G1000, and I mean I do them in the Cessna 172 with the G1000, and I do them in the Cirrus Vision that also has the G1000. And before I started doing the YouTube videos, I was flying mostly the G1000 because once I got used to how it worked, I mean, it was a little intimidating for me at first, you know, because, well, it's an electronic device. It's basically a computer, you know, and I was so used to flying the instruments. Now, I didn't know the autopilot that well. I got more familiar with the autopilot and RNAV landings, and ILS, I think I practiced mostly with the radio stack. You know, even on flight gear, more so than X-Plane and FSX or Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I was practicing ILS landings years ago. But these days, I tend to do the RNAV GPS landings more so than ILS. But I can do both. I'm probably more apt to make a mistake with an ILS landing, but I think I could do an ILS just fine with the G1000. What I don't know is whether or not I would need practice doing ILS with the G530. And the fact that I say that means I need practice. There's probably just truth in it. I'll need practice. But the ILS landings, you're just using your radio stack and nav radio to do the landing. And our nav landing is just all GPS. But if I had chosen an ILS landing when I was programming it in the flight planner, I think it would have still done everything I needed. The only difference there is this would have turned green and switched to VOR1. as opposed to saying GPS and LPAB. Now remember we saw when we were looking at the minimum decision altitude on SkyVector, and there was the one that said LP and the other one that said LNAV, and I told you I thought the LNAV one was for airliners and LP was the one I needed to pay attention to. Well, so that's the one I used, was the 680 for the LP, and that says LP plus V right there. The V indicates vertical. LP, I don't know. I'll have to think about what LP stands for, but I don't know what that means. Localizer something? I don't know. Just a guessing game for me right now. I may know some things about flying, but I do not know all of them. I'm going to learn as I go. And it does seem like every time I get into an aircraft, something new creeps up. Something keeps me on my toes every single time. And mostly, it's me and my little intricate mistakes that I tend to make. I can practice and practice and practice and then still end up making some dumb mistake. Now, I shouldn't call it dumb, but let's just call it, I still end up making some piddly mistake or some mistake, you know, like for the RNAV landing that just, it's minor, but yet it causes it to not work. Okay, we're gaining speed, so I'm going to pull back on the throttle here and throttle below 60 knots. Get a little view of the city. One last look at the YouTube library that we'll probably never see again. Well, there's always the potential to recall, or not recall, but rewatch the video. Yeah, there's always the potential to recall it too if there's somebody out there that doesn't like those stickers, you know, on there. But if you can get on a YouTube video and say, hey, please remember to like and subscribe if you like this video, it helps me, you know, keep me motivated to make more videos and whatnot, then what's a few stickers? Thumbs up. Oh, we're losing too much speed now. See, it's good that I got back in the cockpit because I need to be paying attention to my landing. We just want to have enough speed to keep the nose down, really, so we can see the runway. So, and we were just above stall speed too, so, I mean, if I had let it go much longer. I think I'll maintain that 54, 53 knots. Alright. Oh, I also missed my minimum, so I'm flying it in the remainder of the way right now. I just disengaged the autopilot. I didn't hear, I turned my volume down so y'all can hear me on YouTube, and then I can't hear the aircraft at all, and some of the things it does and says, and the engines or anything like that, nor the winds. And you notice once you're on the glide path and you disengage the autopilot, if you're not doing anything with the throttle and you're just making minor adjustments to the steering, it pretty much just stays right on track. You know, it maintains that glide path. All you've got to do is make sure it stays right on. You know, if you want to land on the lines, well, the aircraft isn't going to do that. That's all you. That's all you. And so that comes with skill. Like there's sometimes, you know, and winds too. Winds can keep you from being spot on, but the skill only comes with practice and over time. There have been many times where I did not land anywhere near the center line, and there's sometimes I do it in the YouTube videos as well where I don't land right on the center line. So I don't know when I'll have my livery finished or if it will even ever be finished. I might be one of those, once I get started, you know, I just keep doing it and nothing's ever right. If I can't find anything right with other people's livery, and then what's to make me think that, you know, I'm going to be end up changing colors. I'm like, oh, I did this in green. Well, what about red? Wouldn't it look cool in red? What about blue? And then have 18 different liveries. But I don't know. We'll see. I might get tired of it as well. But I'll do something. I'll get it the way I like. I'll probably start with the things that matter most to me, like the color of the back panel of the cockpit. I would like that to be dark. Alright, releasing the brakes and setting the parking brake. Then I'm going to kill the avionics. Then I'm going to kill the engine. Then I'm going to turn everything off. Raise the flaps because I haven't yet. And let's do a replay. Just get some of the city in there. I like seeing the city of San Diego. Something about it. Yep, and those cars are stopped on the road again. 2x2. Now I'll be looking for cars in the intersection. I don't see any cars in the intersection yet. Oh, there's one over there. There's one. Why in the intersection? I don't get that, but it seems like every time. Without fail. Life just stops so I can do a replay. Oh yeah, I think I did a smooth landing too. I wasn't even really thinking about how hard I landed, but because I didn't think about it, it means it went smooth. So let me know what you think, YouTube, about your experience with the G530 versus the G1000 in the Cessna. Which do you enjoy using more? The older instruments because it requires you to be on your toes that much more, because it requires what could be considered a little bit additional experience? Or do you prefer the G1000 because of some of the same things that I've mentioned? That you know, there are so many different things that could potentially go wrong with the G530, and it's a little bit easier. So therefore, you know, that's what you feel comfortable using. I would certainly think that the younger generation are going to have a tendency toward the G1000 because they grew up around technology, and people like me who are aged a little bit are going to prefer the older instruments. Now I do, in some manner, form, or fashion, prefer the G1000, but I also prefer the G530 and the older instruments simply because it is more of a challenge for me, and I like a challenge. I don't necessarily like for things to be easy, because if it's easy, what's the point in doing it? If it's hard, if it's a challenge, then there's more of a reward out of it once you accomplish it. You look back, pat yourself on the back, and say, I did that. Maybe nobody else is patting you on the back. That's okay, because you know you did it. Alright, YouTube. Y'all have a good morning. Thank you for watching.